Marcus Chun had fixed broken things his entire life. For 30 years, he ran a small repair shop in a quiet Kansas town. People brought him their old radios, their dead phones, their broken watches. They said he had magic hands. Marcus always laughed at that. There was no magic, just patience, knowledge, and a refusal to give up on things other people threw away. He was 52 years old. His knees hurt when it rained. He wore reading glasses and drank too much coffee. His wife had passed 5 years ago, and his daughter lived in Chicago with her own family now. Most nights, Marcus sat alone in his workshop, surrounded by the gentle hum of machines waiting to be healed. The night the meteor shower came, Marcus stood outside his shop and watched the sky burn. Streaks of light painted the darkness, one after another. Beautiful, peaceful. Then one streak grew brighter than the others. It screamed across the heavens and slammed into the earth, somewhere beyond the old Hendrix scrapyard. Marcus felt the impact through his boots. The next morning, he drove his old truck to the scrapyard. He told himself he was looking for parts. The truth was simpler. He was curious. He had always been curious. It was what made him good at fixing things. The crater was small, maybe 3 feet wide and 2 feet deep. The dirt around it was still warm. At the center of the crater sat an object that made Marcus forget to breathe. It was a collar. Black as midnight, smooth as glass. Around its surface ran lines of circuitry that pulsed with fading light. The light was blue, then purple, then blue again. With each pulse, it grew dimmer. Whatever this thing was, it was dying. Marcus picked it up carefully. The material felt strange against his fingers. Not metal. Not plastic. Something else entirely. The weight was wrong too. It should have been heavier based on its size, but it sat in his palms like it was made of paper. He turned it over and over, studying every detail. The craftsmanship was beyond anything he had ever seen. The circuits were impossibly thin. The connections were elegant in ways that human technology had never achieved. Yet somehow, looking at it, Marcus understood what he was seeing. Not the purpose, not the origin, but the structure, the logic, the way the pieces fit together. Military prototype, he muttered to himself. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. No military on Earth had built this. He took it back to his workshop. Under his brightest lamp, with his strongest magnifying glass, Marcus examined the collar inch by inch. The damage became clear. A crystal array at the collar's heart had cracked. 3 micro-connections had been severed by the impact. Power was leaking from a dozen tiny fractures. It should have been impossible to fix. He did not have the right tools. He did not have the right parts. He did not even know what this thing was supposed to do. But Marcus Chun had never let impossible stop him before. He worked through the night. When he needed a component that did not exist, he improvised. A capacitor from an old radio. A wire strip from a broken phone. Solder that he applied with hands so steady they might have belonged to a surgeon. He did not understand why certain solutions felt right. He simply trusted his instincts. 30 years of fixing things had taught him to listen to that quiet voice in his head. 17 cups of coffee. 12 hours of work. His back ached. His eyes burned. But piece by piece, connection by connection, he brought the collar back from the edge of death. At exactly 3:47 in the morning, the collar hummed. The sound was soft at first. Then it grew stronger. The circuits blazed with light, so bright that Marcus had to shield his eyes. When the light faded, something new floated in the air above his workbench. Words. Glowing words, written in symbols he had never seen before. The symbols shifted. They changed. They rearranged themselves like a puzzle solving itself. And then, impossibly, They became English. Neural link restored. Guardian bond initiated. Designation: Marcus Chun. Earth. Status: confirmed. Marcus stared at the words. His heart pounded in his chest. His hands, so steady moments ago, began to shake. "What the hell?" he whispered. The collar pulsed again. More words appeared. Ward in distress. Location: 2.3 kilometers northeast. Time remaining: 4 hours, 12 minutes. A map formed in the air. It showed his workshop, the town, the roads he had driven his whole life. A red dot blinked in the woods behind the old Carver farm. Something was there. Something that needed help. Marcus looked at the collar. The collar, somehow, looked back at him. He could feel it now. A presence at the edge of his mind. Not controlling. Not demanding. Just waiting. Asking. He thought about calling someone. The police. The military. Anyone who might know what to do. But what would he tell them? That he had fixed an alien artifact and now it wanted him to rescue someone. They would think he was crazy. Maybe he was crazy. But the countdown was still ticking. 4 hours, 11 minutes. Someone was in trouble. Someone was running out of time. Marcus grabbed his jacket and his keys. He picked up the collar and felt its weight settle into his hands like it belonged there. Like it had always belonged there. "All right," he said to the empty workshop. "Let's see what this is about." He walked out into the cold morning air. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was going to be a beautiful day. The kind of day where nothing strange happened. The kind of day where old repairmen did not follow alien artifacts into the woods. Marcus got in his truck and started driving. He had spent his whole life fixing things that other people had given up on. Machines that were too old. Technology that was too broken. Problems that were too hard. He had never walked away from something that needed repair. He was not going to start now. The collar sat on the seat beside him, its light pulsing in a rhythm that almost felt like a heartbeat. The countdown continued. 4 hours, 8 minutes. The red dot on the map grew closer. Marcus did not know what he would find in those woods. He did not know what a guardian was, or what a ward meant, or why an alien device had chosen him. He was just a repairman. Just a man with patient hands and stubborn heart. But sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. The woods behind the Carver farm had been abandoned for 20 years. Old man Carver had died without children, and no one had bought the land. The trees had grown wild. The paths had disappeared. It was the kind of place where teenagers went to drink beer and tell ghost stories. Marcus parked his truck at the edge of the property and walked into the forest. The collar guided him. Not with words this time, but with feelings. Warmth when he moved in the right direction. Cold when he drifted off course. It was strange, but Marcus had stopped questioning strange about 3 hours ago. The second crater was larger than the first. It had torn through the trees and carved a trench in the earth 20 feet long. At the end of the trench, half buried in dirt and broken branches, lay a metal pod. The pod was cracked open like an egg, and beside the pod lay a girl. Marcus ran to her. His old knees screamed in protest, but he did not care. He dropped to the ground beside her and checked for breathing. She was alive. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, rapid movements. But she was hurt. He could see burns on her arms and a deep cut on her forehead. Then he looked closer, and his breath caught in his throat. She was not human. Her skin was pale, almost white, but with a faint blue undertone that no human being possessed. Her ears were slightly pointed. Her fingers were too long, too delicate. And when her eyes fluttered open, Marcus saw that they were solid violet. No whites, no pupils. Just endless purple, like looking into a twilight sky. She screamed. The sound was high and terrified. She scrambled backward, pressing herself against the broken pod. Words poured out of her mouth in a language Marcus had never heard. Her hands came up in a defensive gesture, and for a moment, Marcus saw light gather at her fingertips. "Easy," he said, holding up his hands. "Easy. I'm not going to hurt you." She did not understand. Of course, she did not understand. She was an alien. He was speaking English. This was insane. Then her eyes fell on the collar in his hands. The light at her fingertips died. Her expression changed. Terror became confusion. Confusion became something that looked almost like hope. The collar pulsed. Words appeared in the air between them. Translation protocol active. "You repaired a Guardian seal," the girl said. Her voice was clear now, translated by the collar's strange technology. "That is not possible. Guardian seals are bonded technology. They cannot be repaired by anyone other than the bonded Guardian." Marcus looked at the collar. Then he looked at the girl. "Well, I did repair it. So what does that make me?" The girl stared at him. Tears began to form in her violet eyes. Not tears of fear. Something else. Something deeper. "It makes you my guardian," she whispered. "My protector. By the laws of the Covenant of 12 Systems, you are now responsible for my life." Marcus sat down heavily on a fallen log. His mind was spinning. Guardian. Protector. Covenant of 12 Systems. None of these words made sense. He was a repairman from Kansas. He fixed toasters and televisions. He did not protect alien girls from anything. But the girl was crying now. Really crying. Her thin shoulders shook with sobs. She looked so young. So scared. So alone. Marcus sighed. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She flinched at first, then relaxed into the warmth. "Okay," he said gently. "Start from the beginning. What's your name? Where do you come from? And why did you crash in my town?" Her name was Kira Varnash. She came from a world called Thesan Prime, in a star system that Marcus could not even see from Earth. Her family had been nobles, important people in something called the Covenant, an alliance of 12 star systems and 17 different species. 3 weeks ago, her family had been murdered. A political purge, she called it. A rival house had decided that the Varnash family had too much power. They had sent assassins in the night. Kira's mother, her father, her brothers and sisters, all dead. Only Kira had survived because a guardian had given his life to put her on an escape pod. Verthan was his name, Kira said softly. He was old. He had protected my family for 60 years. When the assassins came, he fought them alone so that I could run. The last thing he did was give me his seal. She touched the dark, cracked collar around her own neck. He told me to find a new guardian, to stay alive, to rebuild our house someday. And the seal brought you here, Marcus said. The seal was supposed to find a compatible guardian. Someone strong. Someone trained. Someone who could protect me from the people who want me dead. Kira looked at Marcus with those violet eyes. Instead, it brought me to a planet that is not even part of the Covenant, to a species that should not be able to bond with our technology, to a man who fixed an unfixable thing. Marcus rubbed his face with his hands. This was too much. This was too big. He was not equipped for any of this, but then he thought about what Kira had said. Her family was dead. The people who killed them were still hunting her. She was alone on a strange world, injured and scared, with no one to help her. He thought about his daughter in Chicago, about the lengths he would go to protect her, about what he would want someone to do if she was ever in this kind of danger. "All right," Marcus said finally. "I don't know anything about being a guardian. I don't know how to fight assassins or deal with alien politics. I'm just a guy who fixes things." He stood up and offered Kira his hand. "But you're hurt and you're scared and you need help. So let's start with that. Let's get you somewhere safe. Get you some food and some rest. And then we can figure out the rest together." Kira looked at his hand. Then she looked at his face. For a long moment, she just stared at him, as if trying to solve a puzzle she did not understand. "You are strange," she said quietly. "Verthan was trained from birth. He knew 1,000 ways to kill. He could fight 10 enemies at once. You are old and soft, and you know nothing." A small smile touched her lips. "But you are kind, and you came when the seal called you. Perhaps that means something." She took his hand. Her fingers were cold and thin, but her grip was surprisingly strong. "I will trust you, Marcus Chun of Earth," she said. "I do not have any other choice." Marcus helped her to her feet. She leaned against him, too weak to walk on her own. Together, slowly, they made their way back through the forest to his waiting truck. Behind them, the crash pod began to dissolve, breaking down into particles that scattered on the morning wind. Soon there would be no evidence that it ever existed. But Kira was real. The collar was real. And Marcus Chun, whether he was ready or not, was now a guardian. He did not know what that meant yet. He would learn soon enough. 3 days passed. 3 days of questions and answers. 3 days of a new world opening up in Marcus Chun's small repair shop. Kira told him everything. About the Covenant of 12 Systems, an alliance that spanned hundreds of worlds and billions of beings. About the 17 species that made up its population, each one different, each one strange by Earth standards. About the rigid caste system that determined every person's place from the moment they were born. And about the Guardians. Guardians were the highest caste of warriors. They were selected at birth based on genetic markers. They were trained from childhood in combat, strategy, and survival. Most importantly, they underwent neural modification, a process that allowed their brains to interface with Guardian seals. The seals were ancient technology, passed down through generations. They enhanced the Guardian's reflexes, strength, and awareness. They provided tactical information in battle. They created a bond between Guardian and Ward that could not be broken. The modification process takes 10 years, Kira explained. She was sitting at Marcus's kitchen table, eating a bowl of soup. Color had returned to her cheeks over the past 3 days. The Guardian's brain is slowly changed to accept the seal's connection. Without modification, the seal's power would destroy an ordinary mind. Marcus looked at the collar on his wrist. He has started wearing it there, wrapped around his forearm like a strange bracelet. It felt natural, comfortable. And yet here I am, unmodified, still breathing. I do not understand it, Kira admitted. By every law of Covenant science, you should be dead. Or insane, or both. She shook her head. Your species is not supposed to be compatible. Your brains are too different. Too chaotic. Too creative. Maybe that's the answer, Marcus said thoughtfully. Maybe the seal expected a modified brain, a brain that worked in a specific way. And when it got my brain instead, it had to adapt. Find a different path. Kira considered this. You think the seal repaired itself around you? The way you repaired it? I think everything wants to work. Everything wants to be whole. You just have to give it a chance. Before Kira could respond, the seal pulsed with sudden urgency. Red light flooded the kitchen. Words appeared in the air. Warning. Hostile entities detected. Threat. Level. Extreme. Incoming. Marcus was on his feet instantly. What does that mean? What's coming? The answer came in the form of his front door, exploding inward. The creature that stepped through was not human. It stood 7 feet tall and was covered in dark green scales. Its fingers ended in blades that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Its eyes were yellow and slitted, and they fixed on Kira with murderous intent. "Found you, little heir," the creature hissed. "Did you think you could hide on this primitive rock? Did you think we would not follow? Avoid assassin." Kira had told Marcus about them. The deadliest killers in the Covenant. Trained from birth, like guardians, but for murder instead of protection. Once they took a contract, they did not stop until the target was dead. Marcus stepped in front of Kira. He did not think about it. He just moved. "You need to leave," he said. His voice was calm, even though his heart was pounding. "This is my house. My planet. You are not welcome here." The assassin laughed. It was an ugly sound. "A human? Protecting a Vernash heir? What will you do, little creature? Bleed on me?" The assassin lunged. Its bladed fingers sliced through the air toward Marcus's throat, and the seal, moved light, exploded from Marcus's forearm. It formed a barrier in the air, a shield of pure energy to caught the assassin's strike. The impact sent shock waves through the room. Plates shattered. Windows cracked. But Marcus stood firm. The assassin's eyes went wide. "Impossible. You are bonded. But you are human." Marcus did not respond with words. The seal was feeding him information now. Data streaming into his mind. The assassin's weak points. Its attack patterns. Its vulnerabilities. He did not understand how he knew these things. He just knew them. The assassin struck again. And again. Each time, the shield blocked the blow. Each time, Marcus saw the creature's frustration grow. It was faster than him, stronger than him, better trained than him, but it did not understand him. Marcus had spent 30 years fixing machines. He understood systems. He understood how things worked together. And as the assassin attacked, he began to see the pattern, the rhythm, the flaw. He grabbed his welding torch from the workbench. The assassin laughed again. "A tool? You fight a void assassin with a tool." "I fix things with tools," Marcus said. "And sometimes fixing means breaking first." He waited for the next strike. When it came, he did not block. Instead, he stepped sideways, letting the bladed fingers pass inches from his face. In the same motion, he brought the welding torch up and triggered the flame, right into the assassin's armpit. Where the scales were thinnest, the creature screamed. It stumbled backward, clutching its burned flesh. Marcus did not give it time to recover. The seal showed him another weak point, the base of the skull. He grabbed a heavy wrench from his toolbox and swung with all his strength. The assassin dropped. Marcus stood over the body, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. He had never hurt anyone in his life. He fixed things. He did not break them. He did not kill them, but he had not had a choice. The seal pulsed again. More warnings. 2 additional hostiles. Approaching. Marcus looked at Kira. She was pale with fear. But there was also something else in her eyes. Respect. Wonder. "You killed a void assassin," she whispered. "With a torch and a wrench. I had help." Marcus held up his arm, showing the glowing seal. "This thing showed me what to do. I just followed the instructions. That is not how it works. The seal provides information. It does not control. You made the decisions. You read the patterns. You found the weaknesses." Kira shook her head in disbelief. "No guardian in history has fought like that. You used tools. You improvised. You treated combat like a problem to be solved. That's what it is, isn't it?" Marcus moved toward the back door, gesturing for Kira to follow. "A problem. And every problem has a solution. You just have to find it." The second assassin came through the back window. Marcus was ready. He grabbed a can of lubricant from his workshop. When the assassin lunged, He sprayed it directly into the creature's eyes. While it was blinded, he used a heavy chain to tangle its legs. Then he shoved it backward into his electric generator. The shock was not enough to kill it, but it was enough to stun it. And that gave Marcus time to do what needed to be done. The third assassin was smarter. It waited outside, watching, learning, but it did not understand what it was watching. It saw an old human with no training and no weapons. It did not see the mind behind the eyes, the mind that had fixed 1,000 broken machines, the mind that saw patterns everywhere. Marcus lured it into the workshop. He used Kira as bait, hating himself for it, but seeing no other choice. When the assassin came through the door, it triggered the trap Marcus had set, a rigged capacitor bank that discharged enough electricity to light a small town. The assassin never stood a chance. When it was over, Marcus sat in the ruins of his workshop. His hands were steady again. The shaking had stopped. He felt tired. So tired, but also something else. Alive. He felt more alive than he had in years. The seal has never bonded with a species outside the Covenant, Kira said quietly. She sat beside him, her small hand resting on his arm. Your neural pathways are completely incompatible. You should be dead or insane. Marcus looked at his hands. The hands that had killed 3 alien assassins with tools and electricity and sheer stubbornness. Maybe that's why it worked, he said. I didn't try to use it the way it was designed. I just fixed it. And it fixed itself around me. He looked at Kira and smiled, just slightly. Maybe being incompatible isn't such a bad thing after all. The Covenant did not change overnight. Empires never do. Power structures that had existed for thousands of years did not crumble because one human repairman made a speech in a Kansas wheat field. But cracks had formed. And cracks, given time, become breaks. In the months that followed, the Covenant sent researchers to Earth. They came quietly, with permission from governments who barely understood what they were agreeing to. They brought guardian seals, hundreds of them, some active and some dormant for centuries. They wanted to understand what made humans different. They wanted to know if Marcus Chun was unique, or if he represented something larger. What they discovered changed everything. Humans were compatible with guardian seals. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But some. A small percentage of humans possessed neural patterns that allowed them to bond with the alien technology. Their chaotic, creative, unpredictable brains found ways to connect that rigid Covenant minds could never achieve. The first new human guardian was a woman named Sarah Park, a software engineer from California. She bonded with a seal that had been dormant for 300 years. Within a week, she had figured out how to access functions that previous guardians had never discovered. The second was a teenager from Brazil named Diego Santos. His seal began teaching itself new languages within hours of bonding, adapting its translation protocols to his unique way of processing information. The third was a retired soldier from Nigeria. The fourth was a musician from Japan. The fifth was a farmer from France. Each one was different. Each one brought something new to the Guardian tradition. And each one proved that the Covenant's rigid definitions of compatibility had been far too small. The noble houses that had destroyed Kira's family tried to stop it. They called for quarantine. They demanded that Earth be sealed off forever. They insisted that humans were dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to the natural order. But it was too late. The truth was out. And truth, once spoken, cannot be unspoken. 5 years passed. Marcus Chun still lived in his small Kansas town. He still ran his repair shop. People still brought him their broken radios and dead phones. He fixed them, one by one, the same as he always had. But things were different now. Kira Vernash was no longer a frightened refugee hiding in his workshop. She was 20 years old by Earth standards, tall and strong and confident. She had studied both human and Covenant ways. She understood technology that Marcus could barely imagine and practical repairs that Covenant scientists had never considered. She was leaving soon, returning to Covenant space. Not as a victim, but as an ambassador. The Vernash house is being rebuilt, she told Marcus one evening. They were sitting on his porch, watching the sun set over the wheat fields. Other families are supporting us. Other species. They see what happened here as a sign that things can change. Good, Marcus said. Change is good. Stagnation is death. Kira smiled. You sound like a philosopher. I sound like a repairman. Same thing, really. Everything is just parts and connections. If something isn't working, you fix it. If you can't fix it the normal way, you improvise. And you never, ever give up on something, just because someone tells you it's impossible. She took his hand. Her skin was still cool, still faintly blue, still alien. But she felt like family now. 5 years of shared meals and late-night conversations and quiet moments had made her part of his life in ways he had never expected. I will miss you, she said softly. I'll still be here, whenever you need me. That's what Guardians do, right? Kira laughed. It was a good sound. She did not laugh often enough. That is what Guardians do, she agreed. But you are more than my guardian, Marcus Chun. You are my family. The only family I have left. Marcus felt his eyes grow wet. He blinked and looked away, pretending to study the sunset. You have a whole galaxy of family now, he said. All those new human guardians. All those Covenant species who are starting to question their caste system. You helped make that happen. You and me and that broken collar I found in the junkyard. It was not broken, Kira said. It was waiting. Waiting for someone like you to find it. Waiting for someone stubborn enough to fix the unfixable. Marcus looked down at the seal on his wrist. It glowed softly in the fading light, its blue pulse matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. He had worn it for 5 years now. It felt like part of him. He could not imagine his arm without it. You know what the funny thing is? He said, I never wanted to be a hero. I never wanted to change the galaxy. I just saw something broken and fixed it. That's all I've ever done. That's all I know how to do. That is what makes you special, Kira said. Heroes who try to be heroes often fail. They are too focused on the grand gesture, the big moment. But you just do what needs to be done. You fix what needs to be fixed. You help who needs to be helped. And somehow, that is more powerful than any grand gesture could ever be. The sun disappeared below the horizon. Stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, among those distant lights, the Covenant was watching, waiting, changing dot, and across the 12 systems, a new saying had emerged. It had started as a joke among the younger species, the ones who were tired of the old order. But now it was spreading. Now it was becoming something else. A motto, a hope, a promise. When the universe tells you something cannot be done, find a human. They probably were not listening. Marcus did not know about the saying. He did not know that his name was being spoken on 1,000 different worlds. He did not know that he had become a symbol for billions of beings who dreamed of something better. He was just a repairman, an old man with patient hands and a stubborn heart. Kira's ship came the next morning. It was sleek and silver, hovering above the wheat field like a dream made real. She hugged Marcus tightly before she walked up the ramp. He did not say goodbye. Neither did she. They both knew that some connections could not be broken by distance. The ship rose into the sky and vanished among the clouds. Marcus stood alone in the field for a long time. Then he walked back to his workshop. There was a radio waiting on his bench. Old Mrs. Patterson had brought it in yesterday. It had stopped working years ago, and everyone said it was beyond repair. Marcus picked up his tools and got to work. The collar on his wrist glowed softly. The morning sun streamed through the windows. Somewhere out in the galaxy, Kira was flying toward a future that neither of them could have imagined 5 years ago. But Marcus was here, in his workshop, doing what he had always done, fixing what was broken, finding solutions where others saw only problems, proving, one quiet repair at a time, that impossible was just another word for not tried yet. He smiled as he worked. It was going to be a good day. It was going to be a good life, and somewhere, far away, the universe was learning what humans had always known. Everything can be fixed. Everything can be saved. You just have to be stubborn enough to try. News traveled fast in the Covenant of 12 systems. Faster than light. Faster than thought. When something impossible happened, everyone knew about it within hours. And what had happened on Earth was very, very impossible. A human. An unregistered, unmodified, primitive human from a backwater planet had bonded with a Guardian seal. Not only bonded, but used it to kill 3 void assassins. 3 of the deadliest killers in the known galaxy. Defeated by an old man with a welding torch. The Covenant could not ignore this. 12 ships arrived in Earth's orbit 1 week after the attack on Marcus's workshop. They came from 12 different systems, carrying diplomats and soldiers and scientists. They came with questions and demands. They came to see the impossible for themselves. Marcus stood in a wheat field outside of town and watched them descend. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. Smooth curves of metal and light. No engines that he could see. No wings. Just pure, impossible technology dropping from the sky like fallen stars. Kira stood beside him. She had grown stronger over the past week. Her wounds had healed. Her fear had faded, replaced by something harder. Something more determined. Are you ready for this? She asked. Marcus shrugged. No, but I don't think that matters much. The first ship landed in the field. A ramp extended from its side, and figures began to walk out. Each one was different from the last. Tall ones and short ones. Some with scales, some with fur, some with skin that looked like living stone. They were the representatives of the Covenant's ruling council, the most powerful beings in 12 star systems, and they had come to deal with Marcus Chun. The lead diplomat stepped forward. It was tall and thin, with too many joints in its arms and legs. Its skin was pale blue, and its eyes were completely black. When it spoke, its voice sounded like ice cracking. You are the human, it said. Not a question. A statement. I am, Marcus replied. And you are? I am Verthex, voice of the Council of Systems. I speak for the Covenant. The diplomat's black eyes studied Marcus with cold interest. You have committed a crime against the natural order. The Guardian caste exists for a reason. Compatibility is determined by genetics, by breeding, by centuries of refinement. You are nothing. Your species is nothing. Yet you have taken something that was not meant for you. Marcus felt the seal pulse on his wrist. It was warm now, comforting, like a friend standing by his side. I didn't take anything, he said calmly. I found a broken device. I fixed it. It chose to bond with me. That's all. That is not all. Verthex's voice grew colder. Guardian seals cannot bond with incompatible species. It is physically impossible. The neural interface would destroy an unprepared mind. Yet here you stand, unharmed and functioning. This defies everything we know about seal technology. Maybe you don't know as much as you think you do. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Several of them shifted uncomfortably. In the Covenant, no one spoke to the voice of the Council with such casual disrespect. Verthex did not seem angry. Just curious. You are bold for a primitive. Do you understand your situation? The noble houses that destroyed the Varnash family demand your execution. They say you have stolen sacred technology. They say you must die to preserve the natural order. Marcus looked at the assembled aliens. Dozens of them, representing species he could not even name. Powers he could not imagine. Technology that made Earth look like the Stone Age thought he was just a repairman. A nobody. An old man with bad knees and reading glasses. But he was not afraid. "Let me tell you something about myself," Marcus said. His voice was quiet but steady. "I've spent my whole life fixing things. Machines that other people said couldn't be fixed. Technology that other people wanted to throw away. Problems that other people said were too hard to solve." He held up his arm, showing the glowing seal. "Do you know what I've learned in 30 years of doing this?" Verthex tilted its head. "Enlighten us." "Everything is just parts and connections. Everything can be understood if you're patient enough. Everything can be repaired if you're willing to try." Marcus looked at the diplomat with steady eyes. "You say your caste system determines who can be a guardian. You say genetics decide who is worthy and who is not. You say your science proves that humans are incompatible with your technology." He stepped forward. The seal blazed brighter. "But here's the thing. Your system is broken. It lets children be murdered for politics. It decides who matters based on what blood they're born with. It told you that what I did was impossible, and yet I did it anyway." Marcus's voice grew stronger. "Maybe the problem isn't that I'm incompatible. Maybe the problem is that your definitions of compatible and incompatible need repair." Verthex was silent for a long moment. The other delegates shifted and whispered among themselves. Then something strange happened. The seal on Marcus's wrist flared with blinding light. Energy pulsed outward from it in waves. Every being in the field who had any kind of neural link, any connection to Covenant technology, felt something in that moment. They felt Marcus's mind, not his thoughts, not his memories, but the shape of his consciousnness, the way his brain worked, the patterns and connections that made him who he was. It was like nothing they had ever experienced. Human minds were chaotic, unpredictable. They jumped from thought to thought without clear logic. They made connections that made no sense. They saw patterns where none existed and missed patterns that were obvious. By Covenant standards, they were primitive, inferior, broken. But in that moment, the delegates saw something else. They saw creativity. Pure, unfiltered creativity. The ability to look at a problem from angles that no structured mind would ever consider. The ability to improvise, to adapt, to find solutions that defied all logic and yet somehow worked. They saw why Marcus had been able to bond with the seal. He had not tried to use it the way it was designed. He had not forced his mind into the seal's patterns. Instead, he had let the seal adapt to him. He had treated it like any other broken machine. He had fixed it by letting it fix itself around his unique, chaotic, impossible human brain. The light faded. The vision ended. Verthex stood very still. Its black eyes were wide. Its two long fingers trembled slightly. What was that? It whispered. "That was me," Marcus said simply. "That was what a human mind looks like from the inside. We're not like you. We don't think the way you think. We don't follow the patterns you follow. But that doesn't make us broken. It makes us different. And maybe different is exactly what your Covenant needs." He looked at the assembled delegates. Some were frightened. Some were angry. But some, he saw, were curious, hopeful. They had lived their whole lives in a rigid system that told them who they were and what they could become. And now they were seeing something else, a possibility they had never imagined. "You can execute me," Marcus said. "You can take back the seal and pretend this never happened. You can go back to your 12 systems and your 17 species and your caste system that decides everything. But you felt what I felt. You saw what I saw. You know now that your science was wrong, that your definitions of possible and impossible were too small. He smiled, just slightly. And once you know something like that, you can't unknow it, no matter how hard you try. Berthax was silent for a long time. The wind blew through the wheat field, carrying the smell of earth and growing things. Finally, the diplomat spoke. The council will need to discuss this. There are those who will demand your death. There are those who will demand your study. There are those who will demand that Earth be quarantined forever. And what do you think? Marcus S.V.O. Verthix looked at him with those endless black eyes. I think the universe just became much more interesting than it was yesterday. And I think that perhaps, for the first time in centuries, change is coming to the Covenant. The diplomat turned and walked back toward its ship. The other delegates followed, still whispering among themselves. Soon they were all gone, rising back into the sky and vanishing beyond the clouds. Marcus stood alone in the wheat field, watching them go. Kira appeared beside him. She took his hand. "You did something impossible today," she said quietly. Again, Marcus shrugged. "I just told them the truth. The truth is never impossible. It's just hard to see sometimes." He looked up at the sky where the Covenant ships had disappeared. "Things are going to change now, aren't they?" Kira asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "I think they are. For better or worse, humanity had just announced itself to the stars, and nothing would ever be the same again.